Hello everyone, I'm Dia and I'm back with another video. So now I'm going to share my book reading journey with you all in hopes that it will encourage you to begin more. So without a further ado, let's start the video. Basically, I have always enjoyed my English class ever since when I was in school. I have always enjoyed hearing stories from my professors and the loved ones. I used to make my cousins read the stories because I loved hearing them read so much. And my school had a special instructor who served as a storyteller by reading aloud to the class. So I won't take her name, but I will say that the way she used to tell the stories was absolutely incredible. Whenever she told us a story, I would literally lose myself in her imaginative world. So, this is how it all began, and because of this, I became more motivated and felt the desire to read. In any case, basically, I'm the type of girl that likes to be busy. So, one day during a typical summer day, I was having my summer vacations. I always prefer to keep myself busy, and at that time also, I just always prefer to keep busy with things that can be creative or writing diaries or even just arbitrary paintings. Actually, I don't like to chill out and unwind a lot, and that's how my character is. And so, in order to keep me occupied while I was having my vacations, so one of my cousins suggested that we would get a book. So, I decided that let's try it out because basically, why not to give it a try? So, that was my uh, aim sort of thing. So then we got Enid Blyton's book, which was Five Go On Adventuring Again. After I essentially said yes to her. Basically, as you can see here, the book named as Five Go Adventuring Again. So this was basically the first book which I have read, and I read this book for the first time, and I must say that it was well worth the effort. I really adore this book so much that I still occasionally reread it. And the reason this specific book is so precious to me is that it taught me a lot and allowed me to lose myself in a world of fantasy and a relaxing sensation. I genuinely enjoy this book a great deal. And Enid Blyton basically wrote this book, and he writes them really, really well. And this is and he's my one of the favorite authors of all time. And as you can see, I have listed few of the books over here, and basically there are 21 book in the series, and I have read a few of them. The very first was Five Going on Adventuring Again, and the second was Five on Finiston Farm. So this was the second book which I read, and so this is how basically I read my first book, and then a bit later, I'll tell you the story about my second or third book, to be more precise. So now talking about the third book, so this is how I read first book, and I received, and then a bit later, actually, I received a book as a present from one of my cousins, which was called as How to Win Friends and Influence People. So this was the third book which I read, and this book was written by Dale Carnegie. And although I had heard a lot about this book prior to reading it, and I had never considered doing so, but perhaps I had received it as a gift. So, in all honesty, this book will greatly improve your interpersonal skills and teach you how to deal with situations such that they work in your favor. So, yeah, this book will really, really help you a lot. Whenever it comes to self-help books, I think Dale Carnegie books are just the best one. And so this was my third book which I read. And similarly, in a similar fashion, a book titled as How to Stop Worrying and Start Living, as you can see over here. So this was the fourth book which I have read, and this was also a very good book. And I highly recommend this book to each and every person out there. So the story behind this book starts like this: that when I finished my 10th grade, actually I got fourth rank when I was in 10th grade. I finished off my 10th grade and I basically got the fourth rank. And so this book was given to me as a prize. So yeah, I got it as a prize, and therefore this book holds a really near and dear place in my heart. And so I would really highly recommend this book, because this book is essential reading in our busy lives, because we only attempt to avoid problems and we don't attempt to solve them, and as a result we begin to overthink our problems and end up having stress. And therefore I wholeheartedly urge everyone to read this book, since at some point in life you just find yourself experiencing tension, stress for the minor things in your life. So the bottom line is that this book would be useful and a lifesaver for you. Yeah, just mark my words, guys, because this book is going to be the savior for you. Yeah, so consequently I heartily recommend this work a lot. Now moving on to the timeline. Yeah, as you can see over here, the timeline of genre. So after telling my entire narrative, I would now advise you to start your own reading trip by starting with some self-help books that will be very helpful to you during difficult times. So at initial days I would really recommend the self-help books, and then you can move to fantasy fiction. As fantasy fiction are little pretty much easier to read, you can start it after completing the self-help books, and then you can move to non-fiction part, because non-fiction is also pretty easy to read. And yeah, it would be nice to start with fantasy literature, and since they are usually interesting to read, and after finishing your reading of fiction, then you can move to just non-fiction and biographies as well. Yeah, biographies because they're easier to read, as I've said earlier. And finally, after reading all of this, I would advise reading classics, because classic is such a genre that you cannot understand it really easily. Yeah, they can be a little challenging to read, and it requires a huge vocabulary to really comprehend. So basically, you can first move to self-help books, then you can move to fantasy fictions, and then non-fiction and biographies, and at lastly you can go for classics, because this is a little harder to and little difficult to read. So I would recommend it at the last, classics. So so this was all about today's video, and this was all about the timeline and the genres which I would like to highly recommend you all. And yeah, so I sincerely hope you appreciated this video and advice I have for you all. And I'll be back soon with more videos.